Today on Pearls in the Valley, I'm truly honored to welcome a special guest, Cynthia Rose. Cynthia is a respected historian and the author who brought to light the remarkable, often overlooked story of Lottie Deno, a woman of extraordinary grit, faith, and courage who lived boldly in one of the most rugged chapters of American history. Through meticulous research and deep respect for truth, Cynthia has preserved Lottie's legacy, not just as a woman who survived the Wild West, but as one who lived with conviction, generosity, and an unshakable moral compass. Her work reminds us that some of the most powerful stories are hidden in the margins of history, waiting to be rediscovered. Cynthia, it's such a gift to have you with us today on Pearls in the Valley.
It's to be here. Thank you.
So, when you first began researching Lottie Deno, what surprised you the most about who she really was versus the legends or the assumptions surrounding her?
Well, as I say, the story started with Trunk, I will say that, in Bandera, Texas. And all the information that had ever been written about her was contained in just a few articles and a book that was written by Jane Horvan Hunter. And the chronicles that he gave throughout his book, he died before he finished it, and his children put it all together. But the most important emphasis in his book was that she was never a prostitute. She was always a lady. And that was something very interesting to me. You know, when you think of a woman in the West, we have such stereotypes that they're all bar girls and standing around with a room full of cowboys. But as I got to know about her, I realized that this young woman, from what he had researched, actually lived a very upscale existence, the finest clothes, the best manners, and was highly respected. I thought that was just fascinating to see a character in the Old West who had a value system that she retained.
Wow.
That was interesting.
Oh, that's interesting too, because you see so much about in the Wild West, like you're saying, your first image goes to the wild bar women, you know? So,
That's sort of huh? That Hollywood is kind of stuck on us, you know?
right.
They sort of gave us that stereotype.
Sure, sure. So Lottie lived in an environment really defined by violence, lawlessness, and moral compromise, yet she's remembered for her generosity and conviction. What do you think sustained her values in such a harsh world?
Well, she was from absolutely the most prestigious political family in Kentucky. And that was one of the things that has been my biggest discovery. I found documents that led me to her family, which no one had ever known. She was educated in an Episcopal school. She was taught Christian values, and she had to uphold those values because she was in Washington with her family. She was in Lexington, you know, among the elites of the time, including Abraham Lincoln. So I'm saying that was the way it was, that families had values, and hers were deeply, deeply instilled in her. And so the family carried other values too, as far as pro emancipation. The family regarded the population referred to as slaves. They were more or less members of the family, and they were treated that way. Um, the value system that she had, because my roots go back a long way. I am very close in age to people who were alive and even born during the same time period, based on an extended family that I have and being the last born in that extended family. So I know what her value system was. It was the same one that I had in my life. And so I could identify um, with the complexities that she faced. I could identify the key thing that was guiding her was the strength that she gained from being educated and the value system that she had. And all the people who wrote little things about her in the past would always refer to her eloquent speech and her wonderful humor, but her ability to be in a room of cowboys, as you say, and be the most elegant woman in the room. And that's who she was.
That's
Yeah.
well, if Lottie Deno were alive today, what part of her story do you believe would most challenge or inspire modern listeners, especially women navigating difficult or unconventional paths?
Well, I have to say this that, um, today, of course, we are going through some of the same things that were going on prior to the Civil War. It's a lot weaker today, even though it doesn't seem like it is. But women came a long way since the 1840s and 1850s. Um, it was, the things that happened to them politically, voting and just just all of the different perspectives that women were being given, better educations, and all of this. So what I'm saying is that today we have to look at what this has all come to. You know that the time of chaos that people young women are feeling now. More women are actually wondering why they didn't get married and have a family, but, and they want to have that family. But for the past 50 years, people have been pushing women into education, into professional fields, and that is all fantastic. It should be that way. But what I'm saying is, we have a lot of female confusion out there. And I just think that it's interesting to be able to tell a story about a woman who went through some of the same political issues, emotional issues, birth control issues. I mean, birth control firstly came around in the 1850s. That is a fact. And so I'm just saying all of these different things that have evolved in the past 50 years. Women women are alone sometimes. They're just very much alone and isolated because of all of these contradicting values. But Lottie held her own. She was what we don't see a lot of in our culture, and that is individual. She was an individual person. She knew who she was. She wasn't confused about her identity. She upheld her identity. And I think that hearing her story will inspire a lot of women to say, I know who I am and I know who I want to be. And it's not being told who you are, told what you have to do. It's really coming into the individual self. Lottie had to do that. She was alone. She didn't have a family. She was kicked out of her family because she fell in love at the age of 14 to somebody they didn't like. And so she went with that love, and that love proved throughout her life her parents were right. But, right, and most young women don't wanna hear that in life, you know, but her parents were right. She made a mistake based on emotion, anxiety, and fear of the times she was living in. But she sure pulled herself together, held herself together, and of course, she never gave up her faith in God. That's a fact. And even to the culmination of her life, one of the most beautiful things that she did, of course, it is at the end of her life when she was with her true love and had settled in New Mexico. She helped to establish the Episcopal Church in Deming, New Mexico. As she crocheted the most beautiful altar cloth. And I always think about this, that the same hands that flipped the pasteboards at the Pharaoh table, who dealt with all those cowboys, could crochet something that beautiful to honor her faith. And it's there. So just she was a delightful personality, but she had to run from the person that she had first fallen in love with. So you have to understand that she said of herself as she was on the frontier, "You've never been a desperate woman." Well, she was. Fear, being alone. She held herself together with what she had deep down inside of herself. And she became my best friend. She is really, truly the best friend I've ever had as I've gotten to know her for who she was. And a lot of people have to realize I've sat down with people who were in their 90s who actually were her neighbors, or actually who knew her, who actually had dinner with her, loved her, were her friends. And so that's another thing about her that's very special to me,
Yeah.
is that I got to meet people that knew her. 44 to 1934 was her lifespan. So you can imagine that was delightful opportunity.
Right. Well, it's exciting. I'm so excited to be working on this project with you and putting her story together with you so that we can tell the world it's truly amazing. So I really thank you. I know we're going to be getting more into this in the upcoming podcast, but thank you so much for joining us today and helping bringing this incredible story of Lottie Deno to life. This
She's a
conversation,
delightful woman.
yes.
Yeah.
So this conversation is just the beginning, and we're so
Okay.
grateful that you'll be back with us on at Pearls in the Valley soon to go even deeper. And to our listeners, if Lottie's story has really moved you and you're interested in helping bring her story and her life to the screen, you can learn more about supporting the film project at redpearlmission.org. And always remember, great stories are meant to be told. We'll talk to you next time.